Michelle.
Hi, Sherry. Hi, Alfredo. How are you guys?
Hi. Really good. How
That
are
was
you?
good. That was amazing. I was watching with Jamie. That was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Good.
Uh,
We've got good. The thing that's so great about this platform, when Alfredo and myself and the team were talking about what to put together, it was like we wanted to just bring as many hairstylists from the industry together and be, from hairstylist to hairstylist, exactly what they need and want. And so what I'm finding is it's a great platform for us to be able to just continue to, serve up all of this amazing talent in one area with and everyone has such big hearts, right? But to Alfredo's point, we don't have time to see each other, to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so I'm super excited about the platform because we get to spend more time with you. Even if it's like this, it's better than not like this, right? It's better than not
Absolutely.
seeing each other.
No, I agree. It's amazing. And you may not know this, but I am extraordinarily shy person by nature, right? So I feel like I turn into this alter ego when I'm on stage or when I'm at an event. It's like the Beyonce, Sasha Fierce type of thing. And then I go back to being like this super shy person. But this platform has been intimidating, but really exhilarating at the same time because I feel like I am super passionate about sharing information. And I know how I am internalizing things when I'm a stylist and I'm in an uncomfortable zone of learning something that maybe I'm not an expert in. And
Hmm.
I think it gives that platform or that space for stylists to feel like, wow, like I don't really work in this genre, but I'm at home and no one's looking at me and judging me right now. So I can make the mistakes and I can, kind of be a voyeur, if you will, and get this information, like you said, binge, get all this information and come back like guns blazing, like ready to go. I've had to ask myself how important is what we're doing as hairdressers um, in the full scope of what's going on with the world, because sometimes I personally would have a tendency to like question and say like, is this really important? Because there's this essential worker thing, and are we essential? Are we not essential? But as I put in my post today, I said it's really about just encouraging, and it's really about giving you something that lifts your spirits. And that's what we do in the salon. It's always been about lifting
Yeah.
spirits and helping people be the best version of themselves. It's all about feeling good, and you wear that on the inside as well as the outside. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Love
Ah, we're
that.
so thrilled to have you. And I would never know that you're shy. I mean,
So shy, so shy, so
I'm
shy.
I'm trying to think, and the few times we've been together, I suppose you're quiet, but I just think, oh, she's thinking of how to make that the most amazing sculptured thing ever, because that's what you do. I mean, you do a lot of things, but you make beautiful hair, Michelle. And
Thank you.
in fact, I
Gotta re-
think you have been honored by your hair making skills, correct?
a
I
few
have.
Yeah.
I have. I've been lucky and blessed enough to have walked away with a few nahas, and I think that for me is especially sort of a proud moment because it's not anything that I thought I could ever do. So
Mm.
when we talk about hairdressers that are in the salon and we work in so many different capacities, there are those of us that are social media stars, those of us that are, salon owners, those of us that are just going to work and styling hair behind the chair and taking care of our families. But our industry is so multifaceted that I just represent one sector of it, and that's the sector of being able to do hair and artistry on a level that's recognized globally. And it's just even the opportunity to be able to push myself from taking someone and washing their hair and highlighting their hair and styling their hair to really like perplexing myself to try to think of something that is going to captivate the attention of those that are looking at this image. So it's a stretch. It's a stretch for me personally as an artist. And then
Well,
to yeah,
congratulations. And for those that are watching that are not from North America. NAHA stands for the North American Hairdressing Awards, and it's kind of like an Oscar for the hairdressing
Yeah,
industry. And so
absolutely.
to proudly be able to say that you have three of those, Michelle, is like, you know, not a small feat. It's actually something that you should be, I know you are, but super proud of, and every little thing deserved. So we
Thank
can't
you.
wait to see what you're going to share with us
Yeah,
today.
Yes.
yeah. So I really, like I said, I'm super passionate about this genre of hair because it tends to be the one that a lot of us shy away from because it can really be intimidating. You know, it's curl, it's curly hair, it's texture, it really isn't going anywhere. You know, over 65% of the population has curl, and there's so many of us, whether you're a consumer, whether you're a hairdresser, that really don't know what to do with it. But the the most the biggest sort of driver of curiosity right now in the salon industry is how to tackle curl, how to style it, how to manipulate it in a way that it actually looks like it was styled. And so you know, you might see someone come in. There's so many different types of texture as well. There's, you know, texture starts out wavy, and then it goes into curly, and then it goes into coily, and everything in between. And I think once it goes past a loose curl, we get very intimidated and don't understand how to manipulate. So I have the magic of TV, right? When they cook, like on the cooking shows. So I have I have a few different styling techniques that I wanted to show, sort of like the end result, and I
Love.
also wanted to show you how I arrived there. So I'm going to speak to just a few of the things that I did and show you sort of the contrast and the differences. So someone may come in and they have highly textured hair, right? Um, we want to look at hair in an individual type of capacity. We don't look at it in its entirety because that's overwhelming. So the first thing is breaking down what's going on with the hair. This brings us back to hair school, you know, where it's all about understanding what we're looking at. So we're looking at a head full of hair that we think is probably coarse, that we're making this assumption just by visually looking at it, as
Yeah.
opposed to taking it on an individual basis, looking at the strand itself and making a determination there. So when we're looking at texture, we want to look at things like the density, right? How much real estate does it take up on the head? It can appear to take up a lot of real estate, but when you gather the hair together, it's probably very fine. It's probably very thin. But we don't know that because of how much expansion the hair has because of the texture. The other thing we want to look at is that word texture. We use that incorrectly most of the time, and we forget what we learned in hair school. We learned that texture actually it's fine, medium, or coarse. There's only three different types of texture, but we use it to distinguish whether the hair is curly or super
Mhm.
curly. That's how we use it. And so we have to remember as stylists that the ownership of keeping our industry professional and using the correct terms and educating our clients is on us. Like, we have to make sure that we're not using those terms in a way that is loosely thrown around where it actually doesn't fit what you're describing. So, texture, right? So, this particular mannequin, I'm looking at the texture of her hair, and texture can, if I give you the analogy, can look anywhere from like a spider web all the way to maybe even dental floss, right?
Mm.
Or if I used a spaghetti analogy, we could say fine hair would be like angel hair pasta, right? And then coarse hair would be like we would maybe it's round, so I would say spaghetti. But it's kind of just giving you sort of the differentiator to say it's actually the circumference of the individual diameter of hair. I
Mm.
So when we break that down, we don't make mistakes in the salon. One of the biggest services that we have the opportunity to employ in the salon is not only styling your curly hair clients, but also coloring them. So now that we've removed really a lot less of straightening and relaxer services, a lot of people are embracing wearing their hair natural and just straightening it temporarily. Now you don't have to, you know, fight with the breaking down of those bonds with trying to color hair that's already been relaxed. So you have free reign. You have clients that have curly and super curly and coily hair that want to be blonde, and
Yeah.
maybe they're, a level 4, and you have the leeway to do that, but you have to understand what you're looking at before you venture into that. So if you're assuming someone has coarse hair and you haven't really looked at their strand, you're going to be super aggressive with your developer. You're going to your assumption about how you should proceed chemically is going to be different versus if you actually break down what you're looking at before you proceed. Same goes for product. How much product are you going to use in that hair? What we know, I have so much information. I feel like it could, like you said, it could go on for like days.
Mm-hmm.
What we know about curl is that it frizz, right? It frizzes. It's the hair that you don't want to brush through unless you're doing something editorially, unless you're doing something where it's intentional. So if someone were to wear their hair in an afro, there would need to be some intention to it. Generally, we see afros and they're round, right? They have some type of shape. Sometimes when you're entering into sort of like the editorial realm, which my brain thinks in that capacity, perhaps that round afro, to take it up a notch and bring it into something that looks editorial, perhaps it would be a star shape. Perhaps it would be something that's asymmetrical, but there's still going to be a shape and there's still going to be an intention. Whew. Okay. So I want to show you how this hair that you see on this side is the same exact texture that you're looking at on the right side of this mannequin, right? So all I did to manipulate, it's really all about manipulating the texture and creating an environment where you can see definition. And how are the different ways that we can create definition? If I were to say, okay, here's your toolkit, here's like your, texture styling 101, it would be, how do you take something that brushed out is in more of an afro state or a frizzy state to something that has more detail and is more defined? This right here that you see on the side is comb twist, right? It's called comb twist. It's also different parts of the world may have different names for it. I know my family is Caribbean. We tend to call these drop curls. And really all it is, I'll demonstrate it on the other side, but as you can see, it created like a very uniform coil in the hair that is a set. Essentially, what you're looking to do is set the hair. When you're in the salon and maybe you have a straight haired client and you might take a curling iron and curl her and do a pin curl and set it and hold it, that's a set. So I always like to transfer that sort of comparison when I'm speaking to straight hair versus curly hair versus super coily hair, because it's always transferable. So if I take this set here that I used, the Biologic curl butter. Butters are really important for curl because the sebum that we produce, every one of us produces from our scalp, it cannot travel down curly hair in the same way that it travels down the shaft and the strand of straight hair. What happens is it generally wicks away, it wicks off. And so you have a mid shaft and ends that's always dry by no fault of their own, by no fault at all. If your hair is curly or super curly or coily, it's dry. It's going to be naturally dry. So as a result of that, you have to put those oils back into the hair as a religion. It's not even an option. So one of the things that I always make sure that I know, that because this hair thrives off of moisture, oil is not moisture. Oil is lubrication. Oil is nourishment. Water is moisture. So when you look at your ingredients and you look at things that you're putting back into the hair, curls thrive with moisture, and that moisture is going to come from its water source. I like this analogy. I always say curls are like mermaid hair, because when a mermaid is in the water, like that's her best self. And that's when it's like it's the most beautiful. So if you can translate what curls look like underwater and make them look like that on dry land, that's the outcome that you're trying to accomplish. So I used curl butter, and basically this would be done on an entire head of hair, right? You would take the comb and coil it, and the end result would be you literally pulling this apart in twos or threes or fours or fives. And that's what creates that expansion. And it's just basically unraveling the curl that you put in there, set, allowed to dry, and combed out and fluffed out. How do we get there? Well, how we get there is, if we're from this state, this client in a little scenario would come into the salon. She would get shampooed, she would get conditioned, she would get leave-in. I'm going to pretend she's been shampooed, right? So we're wetting it. Again, with my mermaid analogy, we know that this hair is going to do something in water that it doesn't do once it's brushed out. So already you see a definition sort of appearing, right, in that curl. And the next thing I'm going to do is lock in a layer of moisture in that hair. I love Miracle Creator. I also love the new Biologic coconut leave-in. That's
all in
amazing.
one.
Yeah, all in one. And I'm going to use this butter. So, right, so I'm just taking this section, spreading it all over, taking my comb, and depending on the curl size will determine how small that coil is. A coil can be as tiny as, you know, the little springs that you see inside of pens? A coil can be that small. So this coil that I'm making is probably going to be the size of like a writing pen. But there are curls that can be as big as sidewalk chalk in circumference when you actually coil it. So to make that sort of reference, this can be done on any size of curl pattern. So I'm taking my comb, I'm inserting it at the scalp area with the teeth inserted, and I'm twisting it. And I'm flipping the hair over the comb and rotating the comb as I pull down. It's kind of one of those things where you feel like you're patting your head and rubbing your belly, but it's a rhythm, and we're used to rhythms in the salon in the same way you have a rhythm when you highlight. It's the same kind of thing. And I just created a coil, and that's a set. So I'm going to do
Michelle, if you don't
yeah.
mind doing it a little bit slower for those that are watching, and closer. And then just if you could break it down a little bit slower. We do have some international guests that are on that I can see, and English is not their first language. We want to make sure that they get this, because that was just amazing.
I'm like,
okay.
Light bulb.
Okay, so I'm using a tail comb with fine teeth, because if the curl is bigger, you can use bigger teeth in the comb. But in order to create sort of that, to make sure that there's nothing tangled inside the curl, you want to make sure that as you're rotating, you're able to go through and you're detangling as you're doing that. So I'm going to insert the comb at the scalp area, flip the hair over the back of the comb, and rotate. Every time I flip the hair, I also rotate the comb, and I'm pulling down so that I'm traveling the length of the hair. So I'm rotating, I'm pulling down. I'm rotating, I'm pulling down, rotating, pulling down, rotating, pulling down, until I no longer need to swing it around, because now I'm at the end and I can just rotate the comb and pull down until I get to the final tip.
Wow. Amazing. I've never seen that done before.
I mean,
okay. What, Alfredo?
Did you see me like having a question?
What's happening with you? Okay, talk to me.
No, I mean, I've never seen it before either, and it just light bulb went off. But the one thing that I wanted you to clarify, and I don't know if anybody else is, I noticed you layered a few products on the hair before you started this technique. And if you could explain to me, from my mind, what the thought process is behind that, the why, and then is that something that's usually what you do to get, because I love when you say curls are like a mermaid hair. I even wrote it down. Make it look like that on dry land, like that.
Yeah.
Was like a very good visual for me.
So good, because I learned that way as well. So we always try to give how we receive. What I'm kind of doing without even thinking about it is in the curl community known as the LOC method, or even LCO. It's an acronym, and generally it stands for leave-in or liquid for the L. O generally stands for oil, and the C generally stands for cream, which represents butters, creams, anything that is sort of going to seal the water and the oil in the hair. So for some, depending on the porosity, which is why it's important to diagnostic the hair. If your hair is not porous, right? Meaning that your cuticle is closed down, it doesn't receive moisture easily. It's sort of locked down. So it's like closed doors, right? But it still needs moisture, but it tends to repel it. So that hair tends to benefit from LCO as opposed to LOC. So always a leave-in. It's like the moisturizer on your face underneath makeup. You don't omit that step regardless, because it is just the extra penetration. Generally, all leave-ins, the first ingredient is going to be water. So it's not only the water that's already on your hair, but it's imparting water, but then all the other benefits that you would get from a conditioner, right? So it's the moisture, it's the slip, it's the split end preventer, it's the heat protectant. It's all of that coming together to encapsulate your hair. But now you need to suspend it in there. So then I didn't do this on her, but the next step could look like an oil, right? Oil, serum, something that's going to sort of mirror the sebum that's not making its way down to your hair. So because it's not making its way down to your hair, we have to put it back in there. If you don't put it back in there, what happens is you have dry hair, you have split ends, because dry ends up being cracked and split, right? And then you have a situation where, particularly in this community, your curly girl always feels like her hair is never growing, because it's growing in spirals, right? So it's growing in spirals, and so it's never moving down. If your hair naturally doesn't have an oil production, it's not lubricated, it's parched. Think of the desert. Think of like when you look at dirt that's dry and cracked, right? It's like it's crying for you to put back lubrication in there.
Yeah.
So what happens is, it's not that your hair is not growing, you're not having length retention because your hair is dry. So if we are mindful and purposeful about putting all those nutrients and those moistures and oils and lubricants and butters back in the hair, you will have better length retention.
So I have, of course, some questions. So what type of, right, Jessica Hernandez is asking, what product did you use? So first you used the leave-in.
I did. On this particular mannequin or customer, I used the Miracle Creator, which is from Matrix, and it's amazing. Always, it's one on that's the top of my list in terms of the features and benefits and what it does. It's like it does all the things that you're not even thinking about. And it's like when you're a child or you have a child and like your mom has safeguarded all the things and you don't even realize what you've been spared from because it's like already in there. So this is like your mom.
Excellent.
So,
and then your cream.
So the cream that I used on her is actually a butter, and it is the Biologic Raw. Matrix Biologic Raw, the curl defining styling butter, and it's brown because it's got natural cacao, the cocoa bean, and that's what gives it its natural color. So it's paraffin free, it's sulfate free, it's like mineral oil free, it's like as natural can be. And that's also sort of a buzzword in the curl community, is like that, because that community has decided to like not put sort of chemicals that necessarily will straighten their texture. They want to put feel good ingredients on their hair as well, and things that are going to put the right kind of nutrients back in there.
Excellent. And then just well, I'm gonna be it's all about me right now.
That's okay. I love it. Or whoever else you're seeing questions, that too.
Yeah. I'll feed them over. So they just asked about your product. So and then we want to hear what happens next. So I have super skinny hair. Like it's fine. It's fine. And so I did use a leave-in today. I used the all-in-one. Smells delicious, which I love. and not much else because I'm struggling. I don't normally wear my hair curly, except back in the 80s. I used a mousse, I scrunched it, and I had very
Yeah.
crunchy hair.
Right.
And now, it's like I'm not even so for somebody with finer hair texture, I or if I were a guest, right, I
Yeah.
could be afraid of putting too much product on my hair because I'm afraid it might weigh it down or become greasy or whatever. So what would you recommend for a finer hair texture?
That's an excellent question, Sherry. And I think that in your case, I would sort of make the observation that, all right, she has fine hair. A butter is not going to be in her future. Like, that's not something that I'm going to put on her hair because, like, you sort of arrived at that sort of conclusion. It's going to weigh on your hair and be heavy. And you actually want to enjoy the volume with some definition. And so in that case, I would reach more for a gel.
Mm,
And it's really going to be your quantity of how much you're putting in your hair. A lot of times people think that a product is bad or something's going to weigh your hair down or make it heavy. And it's really all about like your ratios of what you're using. So water is probably 80% of the moisture that you should be having in your hair. Water doesn't weigh anybody's hair down. Okay. So
mhm.
water's got to be it. Your leave-ins got to be it. That's not going to weigh your hair down. But also concentrating and focusing on like where we are putting these products. I think we forget, even in as simplistic of a term as how are you washing and conditioning your hair in the shower as a person, like, yourself being the client. Shampoo is not something that really should be in abundance on your mid shaft and ends.
Mm,
It really should be focused on the scalp area and cleaning
mhm,
your scalp area, and the reverse for conditioner. Like,
mhm.
conditioner shouldn't be an abundance placed on your scalp area. It should be on the mid shaft and ends. So when it comes to products and me going into your hair, the dilution fraction or mathematical equation for how much gel I would be using on your hair would be 3 parts water to 1 part gel.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? So it's really about being mindful about how we're using those products. But I can tell you that a butter off the bat is going to be something that would weigh on your hair and be heavier because your hair is a looser curl. So you
Mhm.
actually have a higher level of probability of oil that's able to travel throughout your hair than someone who has a tighter spiral or a tighter spring or a tighter coil. So you probably already have some natural lubrication. So I don't need to pile that on for you. I need to focus on creating definition, defining that curl, making it the best curl that it can be, and
Mhm.
allowing it to not be like it was in the 80s, which was a time where curls were harder, they were crunchier, they were frozen.
Yeah.
Now, today's modern curl is soft, it's touchable, it's like a kiss me curl. Like you want to touch it. It's bouncy. It is like it's playful and it looks like there's a lot of air in it. And it's soft and it's touchable. That's the modern curl.
Nice. My
All right.
my sister and my mom and I, we all have this curly hair, and my
Well, I
sister
saw your sister with the curly hair. Yes,
and
Adina.
she's got a more coarse strand of hair, and she uses a product which I use as well, but to your point, in different ratios, and it's a paste. So specific one is a Redken one. It's called rough paste,
Yeah.
but a
Yes.
paste, and then you can put, like, she puts oil in hers, and then I put
Okay.
water in it. You heat it up first with some water. And
Yeah.
I was saying to her, I said, yeah, rough paste to curly hair is like shapewear to my body. And
Rough
so
paste. Yeah. I know it. I know rough paste, and it's good. I love Redken too. It's I do, and it's really concentrated. So
yes.
so
So
you
maybe it's like, if you
yeah.
think of, sometimes I need like double Spanx. And so, in that case, if I'm like a hair strand and I'm bigger,
Yeah. Yes.
then
Yes.
I might need double Spanx to fit into my tight dress at night. But if I'm
Mm,
like in a skinny day, if my
right.
hair's skinny, then I might need something a little more, just like some light shapewear, which would be
Right.
equivalent to
I
more like
Right.
love
a
your
gel.
analogy. I love your
Yes. No,
analogy.
look, I can relate to the shapewear. We know different days call for different armor. It's called
Yes.
armor.
Even as a guy, same.
Even as a
same.
guy. So funny. Okay, all right. Let me get to the next thing, you guys. How much time do I have?
Well, okay, wait. Before
I know
you
we're
move
getting.
on,
You have
before you move
time.
on, you have plenty
Okay.
of time. So before you
Okay.
move on, you would
Yeah.
do this combed curl,
Yes.
and then you would. How would you let her air dry, or what would you do with her?
So if this were a professional setting and I'm the stylist and this is a guest and they're coming in salon and I set her hair, I would place her under the dryer and these would dry relatively quick because there's nothing inside of them. It's just
Right.
hair. So
Okay.
she would be placed under the dryer. If she were really long, I'd start her out under the dryer to get, the scalp area, partial part of the mid shaft, and then I would take my diffuser and I would finish the ends because they need to be hanging. These are not curls that you clip up. They need to dry as they are. So to finish it, I would take my diffuser attachment and just place it over. I wouldn't even push them up because we'll get into diffusing another day, but that's the other thing. The tighter or the curlier your hair is the less shrinkage you desire. And we're so used to taking a diffuser and doing this, and all that's doing is shrinking it more.
Ooh,
Yep, that's what I would.
good hot tip. Okay.
Ah.
So good.
And then after you just separate the way you were
So
doing the other side.
yeah, so then you now is also a great time. So this would be like if we did the LCO method where we did the leave-in, we did the butter or the cream, and then now we're doing the oil. So I would take it and emulsify it in my hand and kind of put it over all of it. And then I would go in individualized, and then I would start my separation. So I would it could be separating it. The more expansion you want is the more you're going to separate them. So if that means you're separating them in 10 to get it really, the more you separate it is the more air you're putting inside of it, which means the bigger it is. So if this is a person that doesn't want to do that right away, maybe they want to do this by day 4, they can continue on the journey. But if they're leaving the salon, and because a style like this, once you sit for a set, you're in this for like a week. This is not something you're going to manipulate or change. So what a lot of people like to do is preserve the style in its most dense form, which means that perhaps I'm separating these curls in maybe just 3s or 4s, right? So tomorrow she's going to separate it a little bit more. And then on Wednesday, she might separate it a little bit more and she might take her pick and make it even bigger because now the sentiment is I'm no longer embarrassed by the bigness of my hair. Like the bigger the better. I'm no longer trying to make myself small. It's sort of an unspoken I love my hair the way it is and I'm going to wear it the way it is and I'm not going to apologize for it type of language that's being spoken in hair.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Okay. All right. So that's one set. This other set that you see, let me make sure you can see it right, is we all know a rope twist, known in the textured hair, curly hair community as a 2-strand twist, but there's also a 3-strand twist. And I know a lot of people were like, well, generally when you twist hair, it's 2 pieces. How the heck do you do a 3-strand twist? And the reason why I chose this to sort of display and show you guys is because it's all about sets, but it's also about the impression. When I show you this hair in the front, there's no impression. There's no definition. It's really just hair that's been picked out or brushed out. But if we're speaking about the styling aspect of curls, we want to create impressions in the hair. And I have found that with a 3-strand twist, you get the deepest sort of impression. So I'm going to show you sort of what you get once you've 3-strand twisted the hair and what comes out of that as a result. So you can kind of look at how you build this toolbox of different ways that you can style curl. So here we have this 3-strand twist and I'm unraveling it and pulling it apart. And I'm not just haphazardly doing it. I'm actually going in and I'm looking for the 3 strands that I twisted. So I'm looking for them and I'm pulling those apart, not creating diffusion, because I don't want to create diffusion until I'm ready to create that diffusion. And a style that is like in this formation, which is a twist, you don't want to start separating that and pulling that apart until you've looked at it in its entirety, because you're not going to separate that in twos and threes and fours like you did the comb twist. You're going to perhaps tug on it a little, open it up a little bit, but you want there to still be a firm definition in that hair. So the tendency would be to really just manipulate the strand a little bit, as opposed to destroying it or creating too much diffusion, because that's the reason why you do a set, is to actually see that definition. And really the only area that you would be disturbing and creating diffusion is at the scalp area. So you would have that volume at the scalp that you created what's known as positive frizz. It's the ability for you to create that expansion with all of the detail of that set that you just placed in the hair. So I'm going to pull down just a couple more. Again, intentionally looking for the 3 that I started with. Right here's the 3. Pulling that down. And as I build, as I start to sort of separate and find my 3s, you'll see like they're actually taking on a cool shape of texture that is its own style, that looks very different from this side right here, which was the comb twist. And it's hanging a little bit longer because those twists suspended the hair. So it created stretch. And that puts hearts in the eyes of a curly girl, because when you tell me you're going to elongate my hair and it's still going to be healthy and styled, and I'm going to get to see like the maximum length that I can see without flat ironing and straightening and doing all of that, I like that. So whereas you have more shrinkage here, it's going to shrink up tighter, which is cool. You're having more stretch here. All right. And we're going to continue, and I'm going to show you how to do that 3-strand twist. Right.
Great.
So this, we would continue. Is it too much?
No.
I'm saying yay.
Okay.
Not too much
all
at
right.
all. I'm actually like, I'm learning so much from this. I'm already like, okay, I need a mannequin, a texture mannequin.
Right.
To
What's
show
her
you
name?
that I learned today and do it.
Her name is Amber. She's from Pivot Point.
We
Hi,
love Amber. Hey, girl.
So I'm going to tell you a cool little tip about, again, we've talked about stretch, we've talked about shrinkage, we've talked about elongation, we've talked about what puts hearts in the eyes of a curly girl. If you have hair that naturally looks like this is just what she was, right? And I wet her hair, she's going to shrink. I could do the 3-strand twist on that wet hair, but there are instances where you will dry the hair. I might make a little noise for just a second, but I just want to get this point across and show you how there are like infinite ways that you could style textured hair, like infinite. Okay. So pretend I, again, shampooed her, conditioned her, and she was curly, right? And I wanted to do the 3-strand twist on her hair, but I didn't want to do it on the curl, right? I didn't want to do it on the wet curl because the wet curl is going to give me the most shrinkage. In a lot of instances, you'll see hair is styled stretched, right? So I'll just take my dryer with a pick attachment. I'm not looking to create bone straight hair. I'm just looking to stretch that curl out, right? Elongate it. So is this really loud when I put it on?
No, you're okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so I'm just taking my pick attachment and I'm just stretching that hair out, right? And that's just going to give me some elongation. If you don't have a pick attachment on your blow dryer, you can very well use a Denman brush with a nozzle. You just want a concentration of airflow, and the pick attachment is allowing you to get some stretch on the hair. Definitely not bone straight. Definitely, that's not the goal. The goal is to just create stretch. Okay, so there we have hair that is textured, that's just been stretched. In a lot of instances, you might have someone that'll stop at this stage. They may want their hair just like this, and it'll be in a state where again, it goes back to that sensibility of changing the narrative about what's hair that is considered beautiful. And it doesn't always have to be curly or straight to be in that category. It can live in between. So I use the term positive frizz for when you pick out the scalp area. We've never heard frizz used in that kind of capacity before. We always equate that with being bad,
Yep.
right? But there's a place for you to have frizzy hair. It creates volume, it creates lift, it creates expansion, it creates like beauty, right? In certain instances. So we just have to know when to use it. All right, here we go. So we have this stretched hair, and let me get this part out of the way. I'm going to take, man, if her hair had, like if I had 3 different colors of rope, it would be super easy. But okay, just hang with me. So, all right. So we have 3, right? We know that 2-strand twisting looks like this, right? It's just wrapping the hair. We know that that's what it looks like, right? When you just wrap the hair around each other like a rope. When you go into 3, it's starting out with 3. It's taking the hair that's on the far right corner or left corner, depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed, and crossing it over the exact opposite side and twisting it. Now, what was over on the left is now in the middle. So now you have a new far right corner, and I'm going to take that, I'm going to cross it over the far left corner, and now I have a new middle and a new right. I'm going to cross that all the way over to what's on the far left, cross it over. I now have a new middle. I now have a new right. Take what's my new right, cross it all the way over, twist, new right, cross it all the way over, twist, new right, cross it all the way over, and twist. And you're going to do that until you are all the way down the duration of the hair. Your sizing can depend on you. The more definition you want is the smaller your partings will be. You'll see that at the scalp area, there's box shaped partings. Sometimes this is a style. So sometimes to create intentional style, this, instead of being a box, it might be a triangle. Sometimes instead of being a triangle, I've seen it where people will even do little hearts in the partings and create a stylized look for, again, styles that live as a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary look. So you might leave the salon with your hair in these 2-strand twists, and you might wear that for 3 days. And then by Wednesday, you're starting to unravel and pull out. And then on Thursday, it's bigger. And Friday, it's bigger. I posted a picture of myself where I was showing 5-day curls, because generally speaking, I wash my hair once a week. And some textured hair, people do it a little more frequently, a little less frequently, but generally it's not a wash every day type of thing. So you will have a lot of styles that are meant to be worn for 5 or 6 days. And depending on, sometimes you'll see what's called a preserving style, where it's braids, but in the braids, there's hair that's been added that can be worn for a month or 2 with a different kind of cleaning. So your cleaning wouldn't necessarily look like a shampoo under running water. It would look like a strategic sort of cleaning of your scalp.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And so how do they take care of it in between, like, you're sleeping? I know I wake up and feel like I have to wash it or do something again.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you asked that question. And this should go for all of us. This is not just for curly girls or guys. We all should not even be sleeping on cotton. Cotton pulls moisture out of the hair. Okay. So not only is it pulling moisture out of the hair, it's pulling moisture out of your skin. So ideally, we want to be sleeping on satin or silk. And so if you are not going to partake in a grandma bonnet, which those bonnets, then I highly recommend getting yourself a silk or satin pillowcase so that your hair actually just slides around and doesn't get drier and sort of manipulated and cruddy by the morning. Now, if you feel like your hair gets oily and greasy and dirty, and maybe you work out and you go to the gym and the first misconception that we have to clear up is that when you work out, that's salt and water. Sweat is salt and water. Salt and water is not dirt. And
Mm.
so that doesn't mean you need to go and scrub a dub dub and remove any and all type of oils you have in your hair. Maybe that's just rinsing. Maybe that's just rinsing the sweat off. The less we can go in and remove our natural oils from our scalp and our oil, the better. So for some people, that might be, all right, I'm going to push it one more day. Maybe I'm not going to wash every day. I'm going to wash every other day. I'm going to wash every 3 days. But the less we can wash our hair, I'm not talking about a month. I'm talking about reasonable amounts of just trying not to wash it every single day.
Right.
The more the healthier our hair can be. Now, if your hair is short, like your hair, like if you're like Alfredo, your hair is short, you wash it probably every time you wash your body. That's different because you're cutting your hair as fast as it's growing. But for those that, you know, have longer lengths, I would say like anything from like chin length and down, it makes sense to just try. Hence why we have dry shampoos and things like that. That's not only the industry trying to say, stop washing your hair so often. It's really, there's a reason. Stop washing your hair so often. So
Great.
I
I'm
love what you
sorry I
said though
stopped.
about the satin and the silk sheets, because I'm already like, note to
Well,
self, go
Alfredo,
on Amazon.
Alfred, you know what? You just took it there and you added sheets. I just,
Yeah.
Maybe I'm looking for excuses. I'm like, oh, I can get a new sheet set tonight
you're
after work.
so
I'm gonna
funny.
have to go and
You're
shop for a
so,
whole new bedding
you
set.
are hilarious. You were like, yeah, satin sheets and satin.
Well, I'm thinking about the moisture. It's not only our hair and
You're
our
right.
face, but our
You're right.
bodies too,
Our
right? If you
bodies.
really think
Yes.
about it.
Yes. So
And I do wear pajamas, guys. Don't get
no,
crazy.
I was not judging. I was not judging. It tickled me that you added sheets to the scenario.
Me
But yes,
too.
if you are going to get satin pillowcases and silk pillowcases, yes, you should have the sheets too.
No, but I mean, for hair, really, I never thought about that before. So it's super to me, like hot tip as far as for our hairs, but you know, of what we're sleeping on or how we're, you know, taking care of our hair.
I just want to show you, actually, I can show you the difference, okay? Because you'll be able to see this. So this example of the 2-strand twist is on hair that I stretched with the pick and the blow dryer, and this was on hair that was wet. So do you see the difference in what happens and like really what that takes on the shape of? Like this is going to be much longer look when I pull this out, and this is going to be a little bit more shrunken. Both create elongation, but this is the maximum right here when I stretch the hair and then do it.
Nice.
And then lastly, trust me, there's more. I have to hold myself back. So this is good old perm rod set, right? There's perm rod set. There is flexi rod set, various sizes. We remember from hair school when we had to meet the quota for how many perms you had to do. So no, we're not perming, but those perm rods sure do come in handy when, again, we're trying to set and create different types of curl and texture on the hair. So basically the nuances on this, and we don't think about it, but sometimes we're just on autopilot in the salon, right? And the things that are just really, really, really common sense. And sometimes when we hear someone say it, we're like, yes, I knew that. Like I really did know that. So we're looking for curl definition, but we're also have to be intentional about how we're creating that, right? So if I'm taking this curl, we know that you can use end papers. We used end papers in hair school because remember we didn't want fish hooks. Remember that word? When's the last time you heard that word?
It's been a long time.
Fish hooks. No.
Oh man.
So,
yes.
So I don't need them. I'm good enough to not need the end papers. Okay.
Good
okay,
job.
guys. Okay. All right. So I'm taking this hair that's wet, right? It's not wet, but we're gonna pretend like it's wet. And it has a tendency because it's curly to just go and just wrap around that roller. So I'm gonna take those ends. I do not want a grandma curl. Okay. So I'm not gonna take this and roll it on itself to create Aunt Esther curls. I am going to take the ends and wrap them around themselves maybe like once or twice, but then I'm going to intentionally create a spiral type of curl so that I, one, get elongation and create a more youthful looking curl.
Nice.
Okay, so we're going to cap that off. She is going to have her hair set. I chose this size because this is what I envision. We always want to, Stephen Covey, you mentioned him earlier. We start with the end in mind.
Good
right?
job.
So we think about the end and I envision what I want it to look like. And so I know that I want this size. This is about the size of like a Sharpie, right? So I can see those curls. I can see them coming forward in my mind. I hold that visual. And so that's the size of the roller that I'm choosing. If I want something smaller, perhaps that you would set the hair with a straw or a tinier perm rod. It's like I said, it's limitless. There's so many different options. I probably gave you 5 different ways that you can do things. You're not going to remember them all, but you're going to take something away that says, okay, I remember she said, leave in first. Whatever it is that you take away, just know that you are leaving having something more than you did before we started this journey. So not only for you, Sherry, and you, Alfredo, but any of us, any of the friends that we have out there that are watching. And I want you all to be really safe, be really inspired in this time that we have no control over a lot of things, but we do have control over what we're putting in our minds and our eyes and our hearts. And so take what we can't control and turn it into something that when you come out on the other side of it, you're the better version of yourself from where you started. So that's all we can control.
Oh, very nice. I love that,
you,
Michelle. And it is all about the circle of control, right? You're getting a lot of really great people saying really great information today. We love curly hair, lots of knowledge. Thank you for sharing your beautiful knowledge.
It's a pleasure.
And question is the LCO or LOC, whichever, the leave-in, the oil, the cream, would you do the twists and the set on the rods with that same sort of combination of products? Yes, you would.
Yes. You could do any of those, or you could do a wash and go, which is like probably in terms of what's the most famous curl hairstyle is going to be the wash and go, which is just, that's for another day where I'll show you how to define curls properly for like a wash and go and proper diffusing and stuff. But Rome wasn't built in a day. And so to be continued. How about that?
To be continued.
Yes, for sure, to be continued.
If you want to do a live and teach me how to do a wash and go, then tell me what I need and we'll be there together. And
for sure. We'll be like, you're going to see me in the bathtub with like the spray hose and be like, okay, Sherry, this is what you do now.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I need all the help I can get right now, actually.
That's okay. I think you're doing fine.
Thanks.
I think you're doing fine.
Thanks.
Agreed.
So anyone out there, if you have any questions for Michelle before we wrap up, if you could just type them into the chat. So far it looks like it's, super clear. We've been answering questions along the way. I don't see any coming through. So Michelle, I know that you did talk about your circle of control, the circle of control and what we can control. You gave us a lot of ideas on how to control curly hair. Is there anything you'd like to share with the viewers outside of just curly hair, just in general as it relates to this time?
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate the message that I heard earlier about like being intentional about just gratitude. We forget, we are all, like you said, Alfredo, we're going so fast. You're all over the world and we're suitcases and running in the airport. And this has forced us all to slow down, and slowing down makes us look at the things that maybe we haven't wanted to look at in a while, and just sort of reminding ourselves when we want to feel sorry about our lives, our situation, where we are, that when you are in that mindset, know that you have to find a way to do something for others. And right now, this is giving me an opportunity to do something outside of myself for others. So I don't have the time to dwell on myself. When you don't have the time to dwell on yourself and be in your own boohoo, remember, go do something for someone and have gratitude. Remember, make your gratitude list. You know, do things that, yes, are going to fill you up. Like maybe that's going for a walk, like Alfredo, you went to the park. Maybe it's just looking at nature. I know that I probably never have looked at nature more than I have in the past like 5 weeks. I'm looking at trees. I'm looking at the flowers coming out of the trees, the shapes, like, wow, like the squirrel eating his nut, like nibbling on it in the
Totally.
grass. Like I'm just more heightened, more aware, and intentional. Like I'm intentionally, and I'm reminded again, because sometimes I forget. Sometimes I know about gratitude, sometimes I forget. But you know what? It is universal, it is spiritual. You reaping what you're sowing. So when you're continuously putting out, I'm grateful for, you beckon and you welcome into your life more things to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's all I got.
That's, well, that was a lot.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that was a lot. Alfredo, what are you going to do with this newfound knowledge of textured hair?
I took a lot of notes. The biggest things I got so much, Michelle, and you're right about
I'm
Rome
happy.
wasn't made in a day, but the things you shared today for me, I learned so many different things that I could immediately put action to.
Yeah.
So thank you. I do think it's like, I feel like there needs to be like a phase 2 for me, like all about manipulating the texture. The comb twist that you did, you know, like I said, the mermaid thing, the unraveling, layering of the products. And also, I never thought about the fact if you're creating these sets with the intention that they're going to wear this for a week or so it keeps building upon itself and coming into different incarnations of the original style.
Yeah.
So I honestly want to get an amber because I got mannequins finally because I'm wanting to get my hands in hair.
Yeah.
And put some of these things into action and like, and make a video. I'll show it to you first and be like, did I do a good job?
I definitely want to see it. Amber has a color appointment shortly, so that's her next move.
Excellent.
But yeah, no, I love it, and thank you for you know, making me feel like I was able to pour into you a little bit.
Oh,
you've
and
got
also the LOC for me was huge too. Like the layering, the leave-in liquid, the oil, the cream, and how you can change that up a little bit. But the L always is your baseline, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Sierra Rousseau says, thank you so much. It was the best curl class she has ever taken it, and she can't believe it was from her couch. So.
Oh, do I take a bow? Do I take a bow?
You can take a bow. Michelle, she does want to know if you're doing any curly color classes coming up. So will that be a tutorial that you will see on your...
You know what? We're in this thing for a minute, so I'm gonna say I'm pretty sure that's gonna come down the pipeline because I'm gonna have to keep pulling out tricks out of my pocket to share with you guys. So you're making me have to do more homework too. Remember, it's like give gratitude, get gratitude. So I'm giving education, so I have to get education too. I have to learn so that I can pass on to you.
Michelle, if you could please film that, you can send us over the footage. We can do a quick edit and put it on our R&B channel. I'm sure everybody would love to understand how you go about coloring curly hair to protect the integrity of the curl while simultaneously giving a little spice to a curly girl's life.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and we so appreciate you. You're awesome. And I know Alfredo talks to me all the time about how amazing you are. I've decided I could be his real life Amber when we
you can be.
Yes. He'll start to do. He can try out all your different techniques on me, and we can see how that goes.
I love it. I love it. Built-in model right there.
Challenge accepted.
That's right. That's right. The Amber challenge.
Very good.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I'll see you guys soon. You have amazing Al coming up. So, all right.
Thank
Bye.
you so
Hearts to you
much,
too. Hearts to you too.